Dr. Jazz.
Uh,
Dr. Jazz.
Thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for inviting me. It's interesting. I've seen some episodes from your past interviews, but how often do you do this?
I mean, I do twice a week. So
Wow.
Yeah, my wife is very tolerant. So,
And Samo, what instrument do you play?
I play guitar otherwise. So
Guitar.
yeah. I mean, I've played with many guys, I guess, that you played with also, like from New York, and so kind of I've been on Fresh Sound as well. So that's, I've been following you ever since the Fresh Sound records, which is like early 2000s, I guess. So
It is, yeah.
quite a long time ago. So then I kind of bought, I think, every CD from Jordy, because it was the same label, and I was like, damn, that's some heavy music, So I really loved that stuff, and it was beautiful.
Nice.
I wanted to start this talk with, I listened to the last one, at least that I know, the last one, Liminal Silence. And what's the story behind it? It sounds like a movie soundtrack almost. And how did you connect with Ben, also Monder?
Well, Ben, I know each other. Ben and I, we know each other for many years now. Interestingly, our connection first wasn't through music. It was our mutual interest in chess. Ben is a chess player, and I played competitively when I was very young. I stopped around the age of 12, 13. So we met through some mutual friends since I was making trips to New York quite often after graduating from Berkeley in Boston. And we would just connect and play sometimes together for fun. He's a strong player. And for self-taught chess player, he's quite actually surprisingly strong. And then Sonny Kim, the singer, and Ben, they met also many years ago. They have a duet project going. They've recorded, they've performed, toured. And I know Sonny also separately from my trip to Australia, which was about 5-6 years ago. There was a composer in residence program in South Australia in Adelaide. I went there for 3 months. Then I've connected with Sonny. We performed. Musically, it was quite a strong connection, and we decided to do something in the future. As we were speaking about the third collaborator, she suggested that we try with Ben. So that Liminal Silence, the album, both Sonny and I are the leaders. So we invited Ben as a sideman. Even though we don't play that way, it's the trio plays as, That's it.
How did you, when I listen to Ben, obviously, he's one of the heroes for my generation, at least. And, him being a guitarist and you're a piano player, did you guys talk a lot about arranging, or did you just dig into the tunes and impros? And
we didn't talk that much. I love playing with guitar players, and one of the things that I really love is actually playing at the same time, even if that means comping at the same time. Let's say in straight ahead settings, comping for a horn player or a bass player. Of course, at times it's nice to lay out, but to me, that's not the the best solution. I don't like to get into that very easy. Okay, if it's a guitar player, then I lay out, then I comp, you lay out. I love the clashes, and also us trying to figure out different functionalities. How is it for you when you play with piano players?
Oh, I mean, if there's a good piano player, I love it, because it's like listening. But obviously the piano player will then not play 10 fingers, but only maybe an interval or a counterpoint. And I mean, when I comp, I always comp only with intervals, more or less. I mean, I don't know why, or Jim Hallish kind of single lines almost. So
right.
Then it works. Yeah, then it works.
Yeah. And also, texturally, we have different possibilities, right? Both piano players, guitar players, we can be rhythmic, or we can be comping with lines, and also you guys, you have the sustain and all sorts of different, softer attack. Yeah, there's all sorts of ways. So to answer on your question, with Ben and I, we didn't talk about these things. We just kind of went for it and treated it one composition at a time, whatever it needed. And it kind of worked out that some of the tunes were heavily based on piano arpeggios while he was doing all the effects. Some others in different ways, but this album is unlike anything I've done in the past. Also bringing in heavy keyboard textural sounds myself, not only acoustic piano, to match that world which Sonny and Ben are so familiar with already, and they're kind of masters of that. Sonny uses this vocal loop, also creates all of these textures.
Yeah, it's beautiful to hear you guys. It's so nice, I mean, obviously piano and guitar, people would think like, I don't know, Bill Evans, Jim Hall and stuff like that, but then is this other world, like what you guys create and have created, and that's so amazing. I love that. The modern approach. And how do you compose otherwise? I mean, I've always loved your compositions, and also I believe on this one, I think you composed some music. And what's your process usually like when you compose?
Oh, it varies. It really varies. I also teach composition, so I have this whole package of tools that I present also to students. And many of these tools I use, obviously, for myself. Starting from tools for coming up for core gestures. Core gesture is one of the most important thing for me. Like the core main idea, it has to be so strong. And when I say core gesture, I don't mean a melodic motif only. It could be a melodic motif, but it could be also a rhythmic idea. It could be anything. It could be a harmonic change. Like I remember an interview with Ralph Towner. I think Pablo was interviewing him. Yeah. And it was great. I heard that interview, and Pablo asked him, what's your compositional process? And Ralph Towner said, well, among many things, one of them is just picking up my guitar and finding two chords, going from one chord to another. And if they go well back and forth, I already have some kind of a gesture. Like something like this could be a core gesture, kind of driving the entire composition. And when you have a core gesture of that manner, then rhythm and melody are in a way going to attach themselves to this harmonic thing as magnets. You're not necessarily composing some other great melody. You could, but that's not the priority. It's like the chord gesture sort of takes over in a way. Like if I have something like this, for instance. So B flat major sharp 5, and then G flat sus2 over B flat.
Yeah.
So I didn't sit down and think, okay, I want to compose something in 5. And I didn't sit down to think, I'm going to go after that melody. Those things attach themselves into this harmonic thing. But again, this is one of many tools, and I love exploring and experimenting with different type of methods.
Do you write them
What
down?
about you?
Do you write them down, like this chord gestures? Like if you come, across it, like in the morning one day, like, oh shit, I'm going to write this down, or?
Definitely documenting.
Okay.
Sometimes, depending on the motif or on the gesture, sometimes I have to write it down just because it's a complex harmonic thing, to make it easier later if I forget transcribing wise, then I can see it. But most of the time, just recording on phone's voice memo or something. Yeah,
that's important. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
I
like it. Yeah.
And you, what's your process of composing?
I mean, yeah, also picking up the guitar, although I tend not to do that because then I somehow go always to the same places. It always end up with a 7/4 or something groove, and I'm like, shit, okay, no. So I don't know. I'm usually like project bound. So like if I know I'm gonna record in trio with saxophone and drums, then I know where to go. And sometimes I just put on a piece of music. If I know I have to write a ballad, I would put on like a Paul Motion record, and then immediately get inspired, or something like that, and just suddenly an idea would pop up and start writing, and it would go somewhere else, of course. And I don't know, something like
it's
that.
amazing. I mean, we can get inspiration from all sorts of places, right? You can get your inspiration from the Slovenian rivers and mountains and all of that. But one of our main thing is actually music. I remember speaking with my friend who is a poet, and I asked him once, I said, tell me a little bit about your inspirations before you write poetry. Well, he says, well, not much mystery, actually. Sometimes I just go to a library and I read for about 4 or 5 hours, and then I just close the books, take 5-minute break, and then I start writing. It's just that kind of immediate inspiration.
I completely get that. I'm the same,
Yeah, just as you said, putting a Paul Motion record and
whatever, or like even what you played now. I would have a whole tune now, actually, like after this, really. Like I hear it where it goes. Like it's, if it's a good, like you said, if it's a good idea, you can just. It's really easy. I have sometimes in the past I had problems of making it short. Now I've learned that it's not to complicate too much. Like, but in the past I had like pages, 8-7 pages, I remember, and it was just getting out of control. Just like adding things, which sometimes is okay, but if you go on the road, it's hard to to rehearse or everything. So it's
always difficult to write simple tunes. And I look at some material from the masters, and I'm thinking that I always try to kind of speculate in my head, how did they come up with this stuff, Do you know that Bill Frisell tune called Throughout?
Oh, it's basically
Right.
4 chords, right? I think. Yeah.
Yeah. The melody is
The
fantastic.
melody.
Exactly.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
And also on what notes it lands. But primarily this, like this, being to me, actually, that is the core gesture. In a way, more important. Again, it's very personal, but more important than the actual melody, even though melody is just stunning. But it's a 3-note arpeggio. Some of them are just very simple triads, spread position triads.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But just the fact that it goes from the low note to middle to top and then returns to the middle, goes to top, that itself is already the magic, and it drives the whole thing, and he doesn't change any rhythm about that throughout the entire. I mean, genius. Just genius.
Yeah. All these guys, like, you even Paul's, like when I mentioned him before, like he has like, a 7-bar melody, kind of rubato, and it works. It's amazing. It's like whatever tune you take, like, wow, damn.
Yeah, I know.
It's just, I love this stuff. It's sometimes simplicity is the best, the key,
Yeah. Steve Cardenas had a workshop recently at CalArts. CalArts is where I teach at the moment. And big part of the workshop was going over Paul Motion music, his compositions.
How beautiful.
And since Steve played with him, he talked about it a lot, and then we rehearsed with the students some of the tunes together with Steve. It was really great getting into the whole thing and also understanding some of the deeper concepts that he was going for. Quite amazing.
Yeah. Who are your heroes, by the way? I mean, if you mentioned, you mentioned Frizzell now, or if you go back when you were, you come from Armenia, and how was the jazz like then? Like, what got you excited for jazz? I guess like early 90s or maybe even earlier, how was the scene there? Or like, how did you get to know jazz, actually, or improvisation? What was the point? You remember that?
Yeah. And you're right, even before, late 80s was that little transition. I should actually not say transition, just because it was a very smooth kind of passing from classical music into jazz. And even that sounds wrong to me because I don't want to make that kind of a border between the two styles. As my whole life I've been trying to blend both into one organic mix. But back in Armenia, I was studying after the elementary school from piano. I went into high school for theory, and then after that I went to the conservatory studying composition. Second semester of this composition department, we started looking at contemporary composers. Contemporary at that time meant the 20th century. And you're looking at Stravinsky's music and Shostakovich's music, and from that into some of my jazz heroes, there was almost no transition. It was kind of, in a way, in the same territory. And because of that, I started listening to contemporary jazz first, before traditional. So that was the interesting part, that I returned to traditional jazz later when I already went to study in Europe. I went to Estonia.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I was in Estonia for a year and a half, continued studying contemporary composition with that whole Arvo Pärt school composers. It was quite amazing.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And then another year and a half, I was in Finland because I heard about this jazz school there, which wasn't at the Sibelius Academy, but it was a different conservatory. Also great, really great scene. And at that time I was already playing a little bit, but again, all my playing up to that time in Finland was very much driven by the contemporary players. I mean, John Scofield was one of the first
Really?
guys that I listened to. Pat Metheny group, Miles Davis's some of later recordings. Only when I came to Berkeley, this was around the end of my study in Finland, and I applied. Berkeley has this international touring. They go and recruit students. Got a scholarship, went to Berkeley in 1997, and immediately was very intimidated by some of the students who were so great already. And realized that the big holes in my playing had to do with me basically skipping this whole traditional. So, and I did the work not only because I needed to do the work, but actually it was it was being in the right time, in the right place, right time, because I truly fell in love with bebop.
Really?
In a different way. It almost was some kind of a, I don't know, mysterious return of that traditional language and with the masters. And obviously we pick our masters, and there are so many, right? Like there are certain players I almost never listened to because I was so focused on the others whom I really, really loved. I connected with Bud Powell, alto saxophone players, for instance. Hank Mobley was my hero. I was transcribing Hank Mobley a lot. Miles Davis was the true hero, like number one for me. I was just the early quintets, and then slowly by third, fourth semesters at Berkeley, I was already getting into the mid-60s Miles, already the other quintet with Shorter, and which now when I look back, remain some of my absolute favorite things ever in jazz. That quintet, all of those records, Miles Smiles and Sorcerer, ESP. Yeah.
Interesting. How was it like for you? You mentioned you were intimidated by the students. Like, who were the first connections you made there in the USA when you came to Berkeley, and the people you started playing with, actually?
What's interesting is that whomever you talk to who graduated from Berkeley, from different eras, they all say, "Oh, the time when I was there, it was the best." Some of the guys who were there before me, they had a scene going, like Chris Cheek and the other guys, Jorge Rossi, and was Jorge at Berkeley? Maybe.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That's a little older generation. But when I was there, it was unbelievable for me. I mean, I got there, and many of the guys who are in the front scene of jazz were also there for the first or second semester, like Walter Smith, Kendrick Scott.
Oh yeah, that generation.
Miguel Zenon, Patrick Cornelius, guy from Spain, unbelievable, Jesus Santandreu. It was like, it was kind of unbelievable. These guys were already kind of killing it. And when I arrived, I was so intimidated. Actually, the first semester, I didn't even play any sessions, like jam sessions, which is the best thing that you can do at Berkeley. And then a couple of colleagues and friends, new friends that I made, they said, "No, this is wrong. You cannot. Your time will be a waste. only taking classes. This is
Mm.
and practicing in practice rooms. Then from the second semester, I started playing sessions and then understood that this is it. This is the best thing that can happen. Was very lucky that Hal Crook was teaching
Oh yeah.
at that time. Have you ever met him?
No, I mean, but obviously, I mean, I have his books, and he's the guru, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
One of the best things also happened at Berkeley. Meeting Mick Goodrick also was quite amazing. Recorded with him.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Mick. Yeah.
And you probably know,
Yeah.
got very much into his whole. I've got all of his books, the voice leading and
Yeah, man, that's
the harmony, the cycles. So yeah, a few things, but again, the jam sessions were about 70-80% of why Berkeley was amazing.
All right. Yeah, sure. I mean, just to play. Did you after Berkeley then go to New York or immediately to the West Coast? What was your story then after Berkeley?
I graduated in 2000, and immediately after, I got a teaching job at an after-school program about 45 minutes north of Boston, small town called Newburyport. Really beautiful. And I spent there nearly 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I was back and forth in between Boston and New York. I had a friend in New York who was a historian, kept traveling to Europe for different projects for long periods of time, making good amount of money, and she did not need to sublet her place. So she would let me know, like, I'm gone August and September, and I need a friend to sit my apartment, to watch my apartment. And so my trips to New York were not for a weekend or 1 week. They were about a month or two sometimes. So I kind of never really saw the hardship of New York, as many of my friends were experiencing, working different jobs, living far in Brooklyn or Queens. I kind of took the best of New York since I didn't have to pay rent and saved money from teaching in Boston, went and played sessions and made connections. But yeah.
Interesting.
New York, I love New York.
Oh man, it was a shock for me the first time. I was 19 when I came there, and I was like from Slovenia, so like, damn, quite a shocking experience. But yeah, amazing town.
Yeah.
How did you make those records? You mentioned Mick Goodrick, and I know he's in Sketchbook, but before that you did the Abandoned Wheel record, the solo one, which is beautiful. Like, and how did those records happen? And also your connection with Jordi, actually, with Fresh Sound, which I mentioned before. You becoming, I mean, a band leader and releasing your albums. What was the story leading to there?
Always some connections, right? And certain people always open doors for you. Right after graduating, my teacher, Frank Carlberg, great pianist and composer. I met Frank already in Finland when I was a student in Finland before Boston. Because he's Finnish, he came to that school a couple of times a year to teach. Then the pianists in school had the opportunity to study with him. So I met him then, and then I kept studying with him in Boston. After about second or third semester, I signed up for his class and private lessons throughout the rest of the study at Berkeley. I was just with him. Frank and his wife, Christine, fantastic singer, they managed this camp in Maine. They call it Maine Jazz Camp, along with a great jazz advocate and poet, Paul Lichter. Three of them they have this camp, and then bring in lots of great musicians from New York, mostly underground players. First, I went there as a counselor, helping around, and then after a couple of years, I started also teaching at Main Jazz Camp and meeting different people. So both Frank, who already knew Jordi, and also a great pianist from New York, Ben Walzer. Ben also, when they heard me play solo piano, both Frank and Ben, they said, "Look, we should introduce you to Jordi and make a record, because the things that you worked out on the piano are really sounding good." So yeah, it was they contacted Jordi. Jordi initiated this connection, and it was interesting because as a first record,
Solo,
it's kind of unusual to go for solo piano.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And also, I don't think Fresh Sound ever made a solo piano record, actually. As far as I recall, like there aren't many solo jazz piano records on Fresh Sound. I don't recall, actually. But it's a beautiful record. Yeah, I love that one. It's so nice.
Thank you. I feel very old with it by now, but
really, how come?
Yeah. Certain things about that time.
You would play different now, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. I have these little fragments there,
I know. Yeah.
which I connect more to those fragments because they developed into other things, and then I started writing these mirror exercises and published a book. Yeah. So that branch that's a good connection, but the longer pieces I don't connect as much with.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that's normal, right? I mean, when you grow older, you change, and you would. Yeah.
I mean, this is 24 years ago now.
Yeah, exactly.
2 decades.
Yeah. What about Sketchbook? I mean, and you playing with Mick also. I mean, did you guys play a lot together with Mick? And
no, but it happened that somehow we met and we played a couple of pieces at some Berkeley recital. There was a good connection already in terms of the harmonic thing, and I asked him. I said if he would be willing to make a record together. He was in. I had a very strong drive towards working with vocalists.
Yeah, I want to ask you
and met this great Swedish vocalist Monica Ingvesson, and made a few records with her. Those were some of the first things on Fresh Sound. Yeah. But yeah, Mick is quite amazing. In fact, the solo record, I saw him on the street and I gave him the record. I said I would be very curious. It's my first record, just to know what you think. And certain things happen in our lives that we forget. There are certain moments that we never forget. Certain things that people say to us, doesn't matter how much time passes, those things always stay with you. Then I saw him again on the street because he loved walking around the Fenway Park, around Berkeley, and said, "Oh, I just wanted to tell you about your record." He said, "I really liked it, and most of the time in the beginning I was kind of not sure which parts were written, which parts were improvised, but it kind of didn't matter because then you sort of give up on trying to guess, and good music is good music." That comment, whether it was a compliment or not, I think it was a compliment. I took and sort of kept it with me through many years. Basically, it opened the door for me of that little border of improvisation and composition.
I love that too.
And because of that, I mean, not only that comment of Mick, but because I was already on that little path, it opened this door of blending my lines into improvisation, but lines that are prepared, lines that are composed. So actually, I work out lots of material, and in my improvisation, there are lines that are just really ready to go. Even though I don't play them exactly the same, I try to make them as spontaneous as possible by playing them differently all the time. So I kind of love that area where what's composed, what's
I love that.
improvised is a little blurry.
Yeah, I love that. With modern jazz especially, it's when you're sometimes listening, and in the end it doesn't matter, like you said, it's good music. And but as a musician, you're always, at least I'm always, when I listen to a record, I'm like, shit, what's happening there,
Yeah.
It's like, even when I listen, I don't know, Henry Threadgill is one of my heroes, and I listen to his stuff, and I'm always like, shit, is this written? Are they now improv? And music like that, it's amazing when it's blurring the lines. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. Where does your love for the voice, for the vocals come from? Because I know you've done, I've listened to Lawless Heart as well, which was out last year, and it's a beautiful record. And you seem to love the vocal. And where does this come from?
From early years. Back in Armenia, somehow French movies from 60s, 70s were very popular. Some of these had vocal melodies, very Michel Legrand, even some of his compositions, but by other composers as well. So, the early memories of these movies, they kind of had all this, and the vocalists were singing very straight, without vibrato. Like, it was a very different type of singing, mostly doubling the top melody, played by piano or guitar or some other instrument. So that sound was already in my head from these movies, which I really loved. Then one of the first things that I discovered as a jazz record was from Polish musicians. A violinist, Michael Urbaniak, I think. Yeah. And the singer was Ursula Dudiak.
Dudiak, yeah.
So now if I listen to those, it probably would sit with me differently. But those days, it was one of the first things that I found that I really loved. And yeah, anytime I heard this kind of beautiful melodies on top, whether they were busy, fast lines or slow lines, doesn't matter. In my head, it was a female voice. But again, to answer on your question, it comes from early teenage years, from those movies mostly.
Interesting. Yeah, because I noticed, like, I mean, I think it's like 80% of your albums have voice or vocals, and you seem to blend it so beautifully always. It's not like this typical jazz tradition, I'll put it like that. It's just, it's like this creative use of the voice, and beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, also once I found Tatiana Parra, the Brazilian singer. She's quite phenomenal. That duet for me is probably one of the most prominent things I've done in the past, as far as projects go.
Yeah.
But also having that caliber musician ready to collaborate gives you no choice but to write more music.
Nicely put. Yeah. Yeah, I'm always motivated by that. When there's like who you're gonna play with, and you see like, shit, I should write some good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Have you collaborated with vocalists?
I did a little. Yeah. I mean, not so much. mostly with horn players, and I did a little, but not, it's still on the agenda. I did my share of, kind of pop-ish projects when I was younger, but in jazz, not so much, no. But I love it, especially this style, what you do. I love listening to standards, but not that I would play it now, like with the vocalist. That's like, anyway. But speaking of high caliber musicians, I wanted to ask you, what was your story with Peter Erskine? And you've played with him and his trio for, I think, quite a long time. And how did you meet with him and your experience playing with, one of the greats, I guess?
Yeah, I was still in Boston before I moved here. Both Mick Goodrick and I had another teacher, fantastic musician and great visionary musician. His name is Mitch Hoppers. Mitch and Mick collaborated together. Mitch is the publisher of those books. So both already knew Peter from past projects, and I think it was Mick. Mick sent him an email saying, "I'm playing with this pianist. I think you would really like him." So he put in a good word. I didn't even know about it. And then after that happened, a few months later, I got to know that fact that he sent the email. And a friend of mine suggested that I contact Peter Erskine. It's a good opportunity. He already knows. And yeah, Peter actually replied to me saying that he digs my playing. So I contacted Peter and saying that sometimes I come to LA because my family lives in LA, my parents and my sister. And it would be nice to play. And he was game to play. So we organized one concert, which was really great.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And immediately after that, he sort of put together another project for me to arrange a full album for a vocalist here in LA. Peter was producing that album, and I've done that arranging job. And then he saw more of also what I do, not only as a player but also as a composer and arranger. And then he offered this trio thing. He had this idea to do it with Damien, his nephew, on bass. Amazing. I mean, we had like almost about 10 years or so before he moved on to another project. He's doing different things now, but touring was quite amazing in South America first, and then we did a few times in Asia, China, Japan. I learned a lot about many things, about your vision in music, but not only music, also navigating through difficulties that can happen in touring in these settings and dealing with everything, starting from hotels to sound checks to organizing dinners and this and that and airplanes.
How was he as a band leader to you guys?
Amazing. The best. Yeah, Peter, he's done so much in the past, both as a sideman and also as a leader. He kind of knows everything, how it should be. So if you're careful, you watch, you learn the right way.
That's the best, to learn from the best. How have you, in your own eyes, developed through the years as a band leader? I mean, when you started, I guess, you started, I guess, with mistakes, and now you become more comfortable. I mean, how do you see that? I mean, your progression?
Again, you learn own mistakes. Certain things have been a bit easier, I guess. Certain tours have been easier just because they were organized by great promoters.
Yeah.
Some others were a little bit more difficult. I guess the most difficult thing is just when you have to come out of your own skin and become someone else to make things work. I never liked that. You can relate. It's the best when we are completely ourselves.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I don't have to talk to a manager and saying, "Look, this doesn't work," or I don't have to go and say, "Look, this whatever you're providing here is just not right," or many different things. But some cooperate, some don't cooperate as much. Again, Peter was really fantastic to learn from in all of those scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's been the sideman like for all the grades basically, and his bands, and I mean the trio with John Taylor, that one, and Pale.
It's the best.
It's one of the best. Yeah,
the best.
Yeah. Beautiful.
As far as chamber music goes, those 4 records are unparalleled.
Yeah.
One little story I'll give you, just so you know also what kind of things I would really pay attention to. Peter always liked playing soft, at least in this particular trio. And we would very often finish our concert with the ballad, not a tune, not a high energy tune, but with the ballad. And he also liked telling the sound engineers that when we finish the concert, please don't put any music in the speakers, for people to start walking out of the concert hall lingering the last notes of the ballad that we just played. And in one of the concerts, it was something like 2,000 or 3,000 seat big theater. This was in Argentina. When he spoke to the sound engineer, he was a little over affirming, or he was trying to really make a point, like, look, please remember this is. And then when we walked out from that situation, he looked at me and them and he said, trust me, I've been doing this for a long time. I had to make a point. I had to make sure that this is not going to happen. Like, I don't want to hear music after we bow, we go. So we play that concert. At the end, we bow, we go away. As we start going behind the curtains and people are starting leaving, sure thing, it's autopilot. The sound engineer just pushes some, which sort of ruins the whole thing. And Peter turns, like we're going down the stairs, and he turns to both of us and says, what did I say? Like, he already knows lots of the people in the industry, unfortunately, are working on autopilot. This is exactly how they're trained. Some of them, they always have been hearing, let's say, fusion drums, and how they mic the drums and do all of the things is not, some of them are not used to these things. And so you kind of have to be,
How do you mentioned autopilot, how do you, when you were touring with Peter or on your own, let's say you have like a 2-week tour, how do you stay creative every evening? What's your recipe, or being in there? I mean, I've had troubles sometimes in the past, like when it was gig 11 and I had my own, the bands were always great, but I had my own personal issues with myself or about my language. And I mean, did you have those, or do you have those, and how do you solve them?
Oh, no, absolutely. All sorts of things happen. For us, being on the road, or even just local concerts. There are days that are not completely not magical in that way. And sometimes there are days that all, as they say, all the stars are lined up, so you can actually just relax and let things happen. What I have learned is that certain kind of rituals or routines, especially around performing days, are a bit dangerous to rely on, because not always you can find certain tools and things available for those rituals. Let's say your ritual is what I'm having right now, which is a very specialized, fantastic coffee. You may be in some place where this type of coffee is not available. Then you're out of luck. Then this big piece is missing. So therefore, what I've learned is just to let there be almost no rituals or nothing to really depend on, other than the inspiration from that place, wherever you are. And that inspiration can be anything. Can be the beauty, the gentle way of the people who have organized this concert. Could be the weather, the rainy weather that day. It could be many things, but basically being open to whatever that situation is. I'll tell you one other thing. With Peter, we did 4 cities in China before that tour finished, with one concert in Tokyo, which was at the Cotton Club. And you can imagine the differences of the both countries. However progressive China is, some of the concerts were a little rough in a way, like the pianos were not necessarily in great shape in some of these places. You have to be careful with many things, including the water, not to drink. And the organizer was a great guy, but a little laid back in a way that not everything was on time. One of the pianos was so bad that Peter even said, should we try to get a keyboard? And I said, no, Peter, I'll deal with this piano. Like some notes were even broken, like in the middle. Okay. I said, let me deal with this, but I still would like to play acoustic piano. In this trio, I just don't hear me playing keyboard for an entire concert. After all of that, you go to Japan and Cotton Club, unbelievable piano, sound, equipment, the organizational level, all the people working on sound with their headsets speaking really softly to the sound engineer who is up there. There's no noise, everything. It's like basically perfection. Dinner served like a couple of floors up, you take the elevator. And then someone was navigating us. Okay, at 4:30, we have the dinner. At 5:30, we come back here, we do the sound check, we do this and that. So everything was so tightly organized in a most beautiful way. But you can imagine, after China, which was so loose, suddenly, I mean, Peter and Damien were okay, but suddenly I got into a very square space with all of that being available. The beauty of the piano, the intimacy of hearing Peter so close with almost no amplification. So you know where I'm going with this. That was the worst concert out of all the 5 concerts. The one with the broken piano was still better as far as the vibe. And it's strange because it's no one's fault other than mine, because I wasn't I don't know still what I did wrong, but somehow that organizational thing of Japan that day sat wrong with me. And I love Japan. I've been there a few other times with Tatiana. It's unbelievable, always, the audience and the place. But it's also mysterious, as you were talking about touring and what kind of things we do. It's so mysterious. Like,
We're
you
humans, right? I mean, yeah.
have no idea. Yeah, on the most beautiful instrument, you may not sound great.
Yeah. I'm relieved to hear that. It sounds bad, but I am actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get you. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm not saying the concert was a disaster.
No, sure.
We played in the most solid way. Everything was fine. But even Peter at the end, he said, this was really interesting, which is in his way of saying, no, this wasn't the best.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, probably for the audience, it's like they loved it, They don't, maybe they don't, I don't think they hear these nuances, or maybe they do. I don't know, But
Oh, no, the audience is smart. They always,
yeah,
if not all of them, but there are always some
some
very
people,
sensitive ears that they know.
yeah. Speaking of touring, otherwise, what's on the schedule for you this year? And do you have like otherwise are you planning something new also as a composer and a band leader this year, and some tours coming up, or Europe maybe, hopefully?
I have a few things lined up. Some of the things are local. In North California, I have to travel to San Francisco for a fantastic project that is led by this great flamenco dancer. Her name is Fanny Ara. Another collaboration that in the past, I would never imagine it would happen. I was at her concerts just sitting and watching and thinking I'm witnessing some of the best acts that I could ever ask for. And then a few years back, something happened with me, which was very strange. I had to do a head scan, and they suspected that I'm developing a very scary tumor, which was completely a false alarm. There was nothing. But they had to do the second MRI to rule it out. 3 months, I lived a little bit in fear, thinking that I'm actually going. When you have this kind of a moment, when you come out of this, some things change. In a way, I felt like I'm given a second chance. And suddenly I was very brave in my initiations of things, projects. And the second day, it was after I got the good news, I contacted Fanny. I just found her number through mutual friends, and I said, I am Vardan, and I love your art, and I would like to collaborate. Here is my music. Like half an hour later, she wrote. She said, "Yes, let's do something."
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So she's one of those artists that anything that she does, there is not one commercial element. There is no compromise at all. At any moment, she's all about the arts. To an extreme point, if she feels that during the performance, in that space, she needs to take one expensive vase and smash it on the wall, she would do it. I mean, she hasn't done it, but she's that kind of an artist that there are no borders. For the sake of art, everything can be sacrificed. And it's kind of amazing. We've been already collaborating in different settings a few times, and every time I'm kind of stunned how that dedication and the depth of what she's going for. Now she has a new project in San Francisco at a theater. We have 1 week in February where she had this vision of two piano players and her.
Wow.
And the other pianist is Gonzalo Grau. I don't know if you know Gonzalo. He's from Venezuela. Unbelievable musician, composer, pianist, arranger. He took the salsa thing to another level. If you have time, please check him out. Grau is Grau. Grau wrote all the music. Some of it is pre-recorded because it has lots of percussions and things, but most of it we play a little bit with the pre-recorded stuff, but most of it we play together. So I'm learning his writing. And Fanny learned all the accents, everything. Like she memorized the whole thing and she choreographed the whole thing. So yeah, I can't wait for that project. Otherwise, little things are planned. I'm going to Armenia. I will fly through Europe end of March for a solo piano, which is going to be my first solo piano, because I've done different bands in Armenia, all different projects, but there is one pending thing. I may go to Morocco, Marrakesh, with Tatiana. That's organized by a great electric bassist from Russia. His name is Anton Davidians. Do you know Anton's music?
No. I have to check out these guys. How do you spell his last name?
David, like David, and Jans, David Jans.
Okay. Just like cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah, he's quite phenomenal. In fact, one of my latest albums, which is from this year, is a commission from him. His debut album, he wanted me to write chamber ensemble music for chamber. It's called Avalanche. It's on my catalog of this year's releases. So I wrote the entire music, and he executed it in Russia with fantastic players. This was in 2021, actually, when I wrote this. Unfortunately, because of the Russia war, poor jazz musicians, I mean, any musicians, artists in Russia were so, like, he just couldn't release it for some time. Only just recently he was able to. But yeah, that one is organized by him. He will be also in Marrakesh, so we'll do a collaborative thing. What else? Some commissions. I love writing just by myself at home. A great commission came from Japan. I'm finishing that. Again, it's for the chamber ensemble.
Beautiful.
Similar to my chamber ensemble, but this one had two instruments I have not written before. One of them is harp, and because of the pedal changes, I had to learn a little bit how to navigate. And the other one is bandoneon. Bandoneon I've never written for, so it's the first time.
Beautiful, man. Okay. Otherwise, for Europe, you're not planning any gigs in Europe, right? I mean, like Central Europe, let's say, or
not yet.
All right.
It's been so busy with projects and things. I haven't even initiated things, but I came to Basel a few times because of that school, jazz campus. Suzanne, who is the director at the moment, fantastic singer, records for ECM. She had this vision that I could teach a little bit there. So I did a few trips there last year. I may revisit sometime soon. We'll see. I may visit Brussels again. I love Diedrich Whistle's music. Do you know Diedrich?
No. Also have to check him out. Okay.
Yeah.
New names. I love it. Good.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Diedrich Whistle's fantastic composer, pianist. He's in Brussels, teaching at the conservatory in Brussels. He has an amazing duet going with a vocalist who's kind of magical. Her name is Anna Rocha, Rocha.
Oh, check it out.
Half German, half Portuguese, I think.
Beautiful. Super.
What about you? Some things coming up?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, all the time. I mean, I have some gigs with in May with, I don't know if you know Ariel Anderson, the bass player from ECM.
Oh yeah,
We toured 2
amazing.
years ago with Bob Moses already on drums, and now this year we're with Patrice Herral, the French drummer. Who's amazing. And then I have something coming up with Mike Formanek. I'm so much looking forward to that. The bassist.
Amazing. I love Mark.
Yeah,
Mike
yeah.
Formanek's.
So
I
yeah,
saw him
you know,
recently.
yeah,
Sorry.
he's a monster, man. It's for me, it's like I'm just like super excited.
Kind of a school, yeah, kind of a school by himself.
Yeah, oh man, it's just like so yeah, you know, some things it's and lots of studio work. I mean, I have a studio here at home, so I tend to write music and record, and it's nice that we can do that at home now, actually. You know, just need a good mic and that's it. I love doing that. So, you know, so yeah, keeping busy.
Dr. Jazz.